This is TWiT.
Google Cloud offers a model for fixing Google's product-killing reputation. They've announced that they're going to go a minimum of 1 year, give a minimum of 1 year notice if they have to change the API in cloud. Of course, this comes, from the history of Google saying, oh, that new thing you like so much? Yeah, we're not going to, not so much.
They've always been fairly good at API deprecations. It's more like product stuff that they blow up.
Yeah.
True.
Google says to make sure we follow those tenets, the 1 year API, any change we introduce to an API is reviewed by a centralized board of product and engineering leads and follows a rigorous product lifecycle evaluation. Yeah, you don't want to put your eggs in an infrastructure basket that's going to change too quickly. Protocol reports that Google Vice President Kripa Krishnan was asked during the announcement if she's familiar with the Killed by Google website.
Good question.
Of course they are.
Protocol says Krishnan couldn't help but laugh. And she said, well, it's pretty apparent to us from many sources on the internet that we were not doing well. So they're aware of it.
Good.
You're right, though, Kevin. Saying, oh, we're not going to deprecate an API for a whole year isn't exactly
it's still not great if you're actually relying on it.
A round trip, or a new way of doing things.
Well, and it's nothing new. I mean, either from the developer side of things or from the consumer side of things. At this point, if you follow Google and you have any sort of affinity to Google's products whatsoever in the last however many years, you probably had at least one situation, but likely more, where a product that you once thought Google was truly sold on suddenly goes away or is suddenly announced to be dead. And at this point, it's a meme in and of itself. Like anytime there is a new product coming from Google, a major product for anyone to get excited about, it's always dampened with the wet blanket of, well, that is as long as Google cares about it and doesn't kill it.
Everybody starts their little sand, what is it?
Yeah.
The sand
the sand
countdown.
The hourglass timer.
The hourglass.
Sets it upside down.
How long is this going to last? Here we go.
And so it's a meme and people get worked up about it and they're like, oh yeah, don't need to worry about that. But we actually do, because there are many examples of it. At this point, it's hard to trust Google when it says it cares about something, because it very quickly does not. But Google isn't the only company to not care about its products and to find out that it needs to move on from things. So why does Google take the heat on this versus other companies?
I would assume Google is more prolific with announcing, well, at least at one point in time, they were announcing different apps and services pretty regularly. I didn't hear about Twitter announcing fleets and then announcing this and then announcing that. I just heard them announcing fleets and then killing it.
And then killing it.
But Google, it was Allo, and then it was chats, and then it was Hangouts, and it's not chats, and then it was voice, and then it was, they pretty prolific with the things that they release. But again, that goes back to my theory of they had pretty craptastic product management where it's just, everything is so scatterbrained and all over the place, and I think someone in a higher up needs to, get everybody a little bit more focused, where you don't have to have these meetings of, okay, we need to go ahead and kill this app,
And replace it with some of the features. Take some of the best features and put it over here, but not for a couple of years. So, it just drives me insane.
No, it is. I mean, I think part of it is Google by design was supposed to make it easier to launch things because they were worried about startups competing with them. But that also meant that then they would kill them when they died. And you don't care so much when some startup fails and dies, but Google by default gets millions of users on day one. So and the messaging thing has just been chaos forever.
Yeah, it really has been.
I get the sense this was kind of Larry Page and in the early days, and maybe Eric Schmidt had something to do with it, but I get the feeling it was more Sergey and Larry's idea of, we don't want to be a big company. We want to be a collection of nimble, fast-moving startups, right?
But at a certain point, those startups need to talk to each other.
Yeah,
well, but
because they are all under the same umbrella.
But now that Larry and Sergey and Eric are gone, maybe it's time to start to. It's hard. I understand it's hard. You don't want to become hidebound. You don't want to be a big corporation where, and I know, Kevin, you've worked for big companies where things move like molasses.
That's true.
And nothing gets done because of fear and caution, and you want to be nimble, but that's the risk that then you make a lot of products that don't make it.
I'm sure Google is not the only people guilty of this, but these departments are so siloed and they never ever talk to one another. And,
again, I think that was intentional. I think they really wanted.
Well, it's not perhaps they didn't talk to each other. It's more that the culture was we'll have lots of products, whereas Apple does try lots of things out, but they tend to do it before they launch it. And partly that's the sort of historic thing.
And in private, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. A lot of regular people assume that Google is putting products out for the consumer to beta test it instead of doing their own beta testing.
Mm-hmm.
But they will dogfood it first, and they'll try stuff out internally, and then they'll push something out to consumers. But there's definitely more chaos involved, and it's partly because web things are easier to sort of launch and kill. There's not as much ramp up as when you're doing hardware.
It's just software.
Apple culture is very much we're launching hardware, we're doing one big release a year. And you can decide which things go into that release, and that becomes the. So the next iOS version will have a bunch of stuff in it, and that'll deprecate a bunch of stuff, and we'll miss some of it, but we'll mostly be talking about the hardware features, and we won't necessarily notice that. I'm not sure what they're going to kill this time, but there's some stuff comes and goes up there as well.